Hello, everyone. It's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. A few days ago, Joe Scott, who runs the YouTube channel Answers with Joe, which is pretty good at YouTube channel, has also a podcast called Conversation with Joe, and he had a interview with Chris Anthony. It's a hour and like 11 minutes long. It's pretty good. They do a very wide-ranging conversation, talking not only about Aptera but a bunch of other things like vegetarianism and particle physics and supercomputers and boats and that kind of stuff. But anyway, I there's a couple of excerpts out of there that I thought was interesting. I will link the URL to his podcast below if you want to watch the entire conversation. But let's just delve into a few of the excerpts. The first excerpt is talking about a little bit about the history of Aptera and what kind of customers that they're getting.
No, we do not. We need to put out the most efficient transportation device ever. And I think people will love it. And within the first 2 weeks of us putting it out, we had like 4,000 orders. And, it's kind of like, okay, 1,000 orders, we can make a company out of that. 4,000 orders, now you get some economies of scale. 20,000 orders, all right, now this is big time.
Panic.
And now so I think, we came at it from a very pure perspective, and I think you can tell, we don't pander or craft a marketing message to people. We just tell our story. We have a communications team, not a marketing team, and we like to talk about the cool things we're doing, but it's not like market segmented where, we held a focus group and we're like, oh, we have to say these words to inspire these people to buy our vehicle. That's just not us. The Aptera is a very cool thing for many, many people, and just as many people hate it. We think that that's a good thing. We think that, there's some people that will they see three wheels and they're like, nope, not me.
Yeah.
Looks like a spaceship. Nope, I'm out. But there's other people that, maybe they're pilots or engineers and they go, yes, aerodynamics. I get it. Totally get it. Bleeding edge engineering to make things lightweight, generative artificial intelligent design to lower the weight of your metal parts. Like I'm all in. There's other people that, are on the environmental side and they say the least impact to the environment. You use a quarter of the materials in this vehicle to make the device in the first place. So a quarter of the cobalt, a quarter of the aluminum, a quarter of the rare earth materials. The drivetrain is a quarter of the size, all these things. So I start out at a much better point for the environment, and I'm getting 350 miles per gallon equivalent. So I'm doing good for the environment on the other side. Add in solar and you have a zero fuel cost transportation device. It charges back 40 miles a day. So if you're paying $5,000-6,000 a year in fuel cost, and you can get something that is free, that's a compelling economic case. So I think there's people on the environmental side. Then there's the people that just want to be unique. And it's probably our biggest customer segment, of people that have ordered to ask questions. They just love that it is so different than anything else out there. It's not an SUV.
Some people do want to be stared at.
Some people do. Well, not so much that, but they, it's like the limited edition iPhone. It's red, it's cool. It's like, they don't want the thing that everybody else has. And the Aptera is the thing that nobody else has. The first 10,000 people that drive this thing home will be the most unique thing in their neighborhood.
All right, so yeah, he's like basically talking about the three different kinds of customers that they notice. I'm surprised that the biggest customer base is the people that just like it because it's different. I would have thought that most people just like it because it's environmentally friendly and it's cheap to run because of the efficiency of it, or that they just appreciate the efficiency of it, the engineering of it. Because I'm kind of the first two. Tell us in the comments below which customer you are. I suspect most of you guys are actually in the first two group. I don't know that a lot of people are in the third group, but Chris Anthony says that's the most popular group, which is somewhat surprising to me, but I guess makes sense. Okay, in this next segment, he kind of talks a little bit about the history of Aptera, which I thought was interesting. We've heard a lot of the history, but this was something I hadn't heard before, a little tidbit.
Then I met Steve Fambro in San Diego here through a mutual friend. Steve was starting to ideate Aptera, and he was trying to build it out of faceted panel composites and glue them together like in a very
Mm.
angular format, and then he's going to put like an aerodynamic shell over it. And then he was ordering parts to his work because back then UPS wouldn't deliver to your house. That's how old we are. Um, but he was having those composite things delivered to work, and his work friend knew me, and she was like, "Oh, you know, you have to meet this boat guy. He's doing really cool composite stuff, and you're doing stuff on the car." So that's how Steve and I met,
Okay.
was through the composites that I developed for the boat. And I told Steve, I was like, "No, no, you don't want to do this faceted a panel thing. You want to build it like a monocoque structure, like a Formula One car or a Cirrus aircraft. You want to, you want a cocoon around the passengers, and then you
Mm.
want that to carry all the loads from the suspension and all that stuff." And he said, "You're right." And then we kind of held hands and started. And he hadn't really conceived of computational fluid dynamics when I met him. So the first thing we did was we made a NURBS model of the Aptera shape. And I remember we hired a guy to do it, and to inform him on how we thought the shape should be, we made a little Play-Doh model and we put it on a cake turner. We took pictures of it turning around. And it was this little shit turd of a red clay, Play-Doh model that I still have pictures of. I was like, this is where the Aptera started. We started with this little Play-Doh
Yeah.
model, and then we turned it into a NURBS model, and then we actually sent that model to NASA Langley, because at the time they had the world's largest computational fluid dynamics virtual wind tunnel.
Okay.
And we the first check we wrote was a $17,000 check to NASA Langley to get them to do the aerodynamic study on the vehicle.
Wow.
And I remember we sent it off to them, and we waited for like a week, and then they sent us an email, and they were like, "We seem to have some anomalous results. We'd like to get on a conference call and talk to you about it." And they got us on the phone, and they were like, "This is the lowest aerodynamic drag shape we've seen on the road ever.
Oh,
We
so the
don't
anomaly was that it was too good.
The anomaly was that it was too good." And
Interesting.
then we had to explain to the NASA engineers, what ground effect was and what we were doing to actually defeat that. And kind of light bulbs went off. They were used to designing missiles and airplanes and stuff that were high in the air.
Mm.
But when you get close to the ground, the problem is you always have this high pressure zone in front of whatever you're pushing on the ground. You got to figure out what to do with that high pressure zone. So we figured out that, just like my boat, if you can speed up the air to the rear of the vehicle, that's why the Aptera has kind of a hump in its back,
Uh-huh.
is we actually pull the air from the front of the vehicle to the back of the vehicle. And we speed up the air, we lower the pressure, so it's like a vacuum to the back of the vehicle. And we actually suck the high pressure zone out of the front of the vehicle, and it makes for a very, very smooth
Interesting.
aerodynamic profile. We found out years later that actually sharks, when they swim close to the seafloor, they actually put a hump in their back because water's 1,000 times more viscous than air. So fish find out very quickly how hard it is to swim close to the seafloor. So they put a hump in their back, millions of years ago, and learned this lesson. But it was really interesting to have 6 NASA engineers on the phone. I can't imagine how much that we got our money's worth. We got our $17,000 worth because these guys, we pontificated on the phone, for 90 minutes with them, and they were just scratching their heads, and they were like, I guess the results are right. So you guys have the most aerodynamic thing we've ever seen.
Wow, that's crazy.
So and that's what kind of got the company funded was, we have this report from NASA that says this is the most aerodynamic thing ever. And then we went out and raised some money to.
It's a good sales pitch for sure.
Okay, so yeah, they were talking about how how Steve and Chris met, and how they were going to the composite body, and then how they sent this little model to Langley for the computational fluid dynamics. And it kind of makes it sound like they developed the shape that we know that the shape was developed by Morelli, so it's the Morelli body, backed by the Italian professor, I think at the University of Turin a while back. So that's the shape. The shape is not a teardrop shape as it would be like in the air, but there is this ground effect that you have to take care of, and that's why the Morelli shape looks like it does. And Aptera basically follows the Morelli shape. But yeah, it was a fun little tidbit about the history of Aptera. All right, and then in this segment, this is the last segment. We're talking about the kind of the production thing. A lot of this we've heard, but it was still interesting to hear it again.
So we're hoping to finish the design by the end of the year. The Gamma that we introduced that you saw at fully charged, we consider kind of an 80% production contented vehicle. But we actually designed that like 8-9 months ago, but then we had to build it to show fully charged. So since then, we've been working on the production design, which has largely been an effort of working with suppliers. So suppliers, what part can you provide us? We would love the part to look like this. And they'd come back and they're like, well, it doesn't look like that. It looks like this. And it has the brackets in different locations. And then
Yeah.
we had to figure out with the supplier, okay, do we pay for you to redesign that part to be more like what we want? Or do we just use it as is and figure out how to handle it on our side? So really the last, kind of 6, 9 months for us has been a supply chain effort of figuring out, okay, what are the production parts and how do they all come together? And, you have to have system wide discussions, and there's cost implications too. So you can't have the vehicle get too expensive and
Yeah.
stuff like that. We hope to have a pin in all that by the end of the year. We're very close now. We've been doing kind of final design reviews on a lot of different systems, and it's really cool to see such a massive kind of undertaking. We 100 engineers and 70, 80 contractors out of the company, all working hard to kind of push this design forward and get everything done. It's cool to see all the pieces, as the A team would say. I love it when a plan comes together.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we're at
Eat
now,
a
right?
cigar
Plan.
when you say that. So are there any? I'm assuming all the changes between Gamma and Delta are fairly fine tuning little things here and there. Like no big design changes that people will be like,
Yeah, well,
wow.
some more kind of architecture changes, because we found this company in Italy that does these kind of supercar carbon fiber composites, but they do it in a very manufacturable way, and it's kind of just catching on to how cool this technology could be.
Oh, cool.
But it's very much so just stamping out parts. You put a carbon fiber and thermoset resin goo into a waffle iron, and you stamp the waffle iron down, and 10 minutes later you have a big Aptera part. It's kind of the
Nice.
cheapest long-term way that we think we can build these parts, and it helps us scale. You can build hundreds of thousands of parts out of each of these molds, and it happens really, really quickly. So, because of that method, you can do things with their process that you couldn't do with like the green vehicle you see behind me. You can put structural ribs on the back. You can put fasteners in the part. You can do a lot of cool things that we couldn't do with this composite. So some of the design effort has been kind of changing how we think about the parts and how we affix things to the parts. So we kind of had to re-architect some of the parts. Cosmetically, though, it looked very similar. All those are kind of the underpinnings of the vehicle.
Mm.
So I think cosmetically, same profile, same length, same width, same aerodynamic shape. The, uh, the 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 interior looks very, very much so the same.
Mm.
It's just some of those kind of how we think about the composite parts, and then suppliers coming back to us and saying, yeah, we don't make a bracket like that, you're gonna have to use our bracket, or you're gonna have to pay us $100,000. We're like, yeah, we don't want to pay $100,000, so we'll just figure out how to use your bracket.
Makes sense. So you're looking at end of next year or so before you start delivering?
Unfortunately, everything's funding dependent. So
Okay.
if we have any people of means that want to invest in Aptera,
Oh,
it's
here we go. Here's the pitch.
it's invest.aptera.us. But once we're funded for production, it's kind of 9 months to get the manufacturing train rolling. So we got to
Mm.
get the equipment in, we got to commission the equipment, we got to run kind of test cycles to build everything. So that's kind of a 9 month window. So if we get major funding by the end of the year, then 9 months later we're cranking out Apteras.
It's probably gonna be one of those slowly and then suddenly kind of things.
Yeah, Sandy Monroe and Pablo are brilliant VP of manufacturing. They're of the accord that like a lot of other companies have made the mistake of starting slowly and then trying to ramp up. Let's build one vehicle a day, and then two vehicles a day, and then five vehicles a day. The problem is when you hire people to build one vehicle a day, and then you tell people, hey, we're going to increase production to 4 vehicles a day, their head explodes. I can't build 4 vehicles a day. It's a pain in the ass just building one vehicle a day.
Yeah.
So we're buying the equipment, we're scaling up for manufacturer, like with these partners in Italy, CPC, to build 40 vehicles a day. So it's not kind of a trickle and then more of a trickle and scale. It's we're going to start manufacture, and within 3 months we're going to be building 40 vehicles a day. And then once we get used to that, we're going to put in a second shift so we can build 80 vehicles a day.
Gotcha.
So hopefully that'll happen, less than a year later from when we start production.
That's cool.
But that's the goal: is get into production, buy all the equipment for that, hire all the people, train them to build 40 vehicles a day, and then just start building 40 vehicles a day.
Okay, so a lot of information there actually. They are talking about how Sandy Monroe basically seems to be driving this idea of going to 40 vehicles a day. and they hope to ramp to 40 vehicles a day within a 3-month period of kind of working out the kinks of their assembly line. And then their plan is to go to 2 shifts and do 80 a day. So it sounds like they can do 80 vehicles a day out of their one assembly plant in Carlsbad, which would be good when they go to 2 shifts a day. Um, so, and then again, he reiterated that it's funding dependent and it's probably about 9 months. So it sounds like the timeline is we get funding. Once you get funding, there's 9 months. Then they work out the kinks, and then 3 months after that, they are going to be at 40 vehicles a day if all goes well. So if everything goes perfectly, uh, we might hit 40 vehicles a day by Christmas of 2023. That's if everything goes perfectly, which we know nothing in life ever goes perfectly. But that seems to be the plan. Okay, anyways, link to the podcast will be in the description below. Please go check it out. It's very good. Um, if you want to check out the whole thing, it's a pretty interesting podcast. Thanks for watching, guys, and have a great day.